and welcome to Keencut's very first live event. My name is Debbie Pendergrast. I'm Business Development Manager here at Keencut and I will be your host for today's session. I'm joined in the studio today by Curtis.
Hello there guys, so my name's Curtis. I'll be in charge of sound and visuals for today's live stream session. I'll be watching out for any comments or questions you do post in the chat, so make sure you're logged into YouTube so you can post any of your questions. If you want to ask Debbie anything about the SteelTrack, or if you have any other questions about Keencut, just drop a hello in the chat so I know you're watching. I'll be keeping an eye on the chat throughout the whole session, so feel free to type anything at any time and I'll make sure I'll get any of your questions answered.
Thank you. So as Curtis has mentioned, the fact that he is going to be monitoring the chat box, so if you have any questions that you would like me to answer going through this, please put them in there. Alternatively, if you have any thoughts or ideas of subject matter that you would like to see or topics that you would like us to cover, then please also do put that in there. Now, today's session is covering the calibrating of the squaring arm for the SteelTrack. I'm going to take you through a series of steps to make sure that that's fine. But with our SteelTrack, I mean, here at Keencut, we want you to get the best out of your Keencut machine. So in relation to the SteelTrack, it's the #1 go-to manual cutting machine for rigid and semi-rigid materials. But I think it's probably best known for the fact that it actually cuts and finishes in one easy pass aluminium composite paneling. Now, you might know that as die bond or as alu panel, but it has a really good ability to do that. Now, excitingly, last year we actually brought out a brand new cutting head. So this is the original cutting head for the SteelTrack, and we brought out this head here. It looks a little bit like a dinosaur's head, and not only does it have the capability of cutting in one pass and finishing aluminium composite paneling, but it also has the ability to cut steel composite paneling as well without the fear of dust or sparks. So the other added advantage of this is the fact that it actually reduces down the amount of bending on the offcut of aluminium composite paneling, and it brings it within printing tolerance. So if you have a SteelTrack and you have the original head and you have had previous issues with the bending of the offcut on aluminium composite paneling, then this is a really easy, economical upgrade for you. All of these heads are backwards compatible to the SteelTracks we already have on the market, and we are now manufacturing our SteelTracks and shipping them with this head in particular. If you do have a SteelTrack and you think that it might not be cutting squarely for you, it's not a very common occurrence, but if you think it's not cutting particularly squarely for you, I'm going to take you through a series of steps. So we'll have a test and make sure that it's cutting squarely in the first place, and if it's not, I'm going to take you through a series of steps to show you how to rectify that. Now, you will need a few things for this to happen. You will need a decent sized piece of mount board or card or PVC foam board, anywhere between 3 to 5 mil will do. You will need a 5mm Allen key, and you will need 2 17mm open-ended spanners or wrenches. And most important thing actually that you'll need is the SteelTrack itself. So in order for me to test whether the machine is actually square, I'm going to take my piece of mount board, so I'm going to be using mount board, and I'm going to house it onto the SteelTrack. I'm going to place it in the centre of the SteelTrack itself, behind the clamp. I need to make sure that it's sitting flat on the squaring arm. So once I know that it's sitting flat on the squaring arm, I can clamp the board in place and it's not going to be moving. Just going to make it a little bit more central. It's not going to move, and I'm going to perform 2 cuts. I'm going to perform a cut at the top and a cut at the bottom of the board. So I'll engage the blade, making sure that the cutting blade is facing towards the spine of the SteelTrack. So engage the blade, make a first cut, disengage the ratchet with the lever, take the head down to the bottom of the board and perform a second cut at the bottom of the board. So push the blade into the board and make a cut. The head will disengage as a safety feature at the bottom. Once you have those 2 cuts, unclamp the board and slide it out. Now, this is really important. You have to turn the board back to front on itself, 180 degrees on itself. not upside down. That will not help you for this. So I'm going to turn my board to front, place it again behind the SteelTrack, and I need to make sure again that the board is sitting flush on the squaring arm, and I don't want the board to be moving because I need to perform another couple of cuts. So I'm going to insert the blade into the bottom cut where I previously cut it in the bottom, making sure that it's sitting flat on the squaring arm. Once I have it in place and it's sitting flat, I can clamp it down again, and I'm going to perform another cut at the top of the board. Now ideally, at this point, the second cut goes in exactly the same place as the first cut. If that occurs, that's absolutely perfect. Your machine is square, you don't need to touch it, you don't need to do anything else with it. It's perfectly aligned. If, however, you find that the second cut is away from the first cut, as mine is, then you need to align your machine. You need to adjust the squaring arm so that it moves and the blade will fall in the middle of those two cuts. Now, before I unclamp the board, I'm going to place the blade back in the bottom cut because I need to unclamp the board as it's going to move on its axis, but I need the board to move freely without it actually moving from its place of cut. So I've undone the clamp. I'm now going to take my Allen key and I'm going to take my spanners and I'm going to undo a few things. I need to loosen the two screws that hold the squaring arm to the SteelTrack legs. I need to make sure that the bolt housed just behind the slideway on the right hand side is tight, and I need to make sure that the bolt housed on the left of the slideway is loose. So just as a recap, I'm going to loose, tight, loose, loose. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'm just going to pass you back over to Curtis.
Hi guys, Curtis again. So, have you checked out any of our social media channels yet? If you didn't know, on our Instagram, Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn, we are constantly posting to keep you guys up to date with everything new and keeping you up to date with all the dates for these live events. We will post whenever we have new content. So the Keencut YouTube channel has lots of content as well. It includes things such as instructional videos, material tests, recorded live streams, custom reviews and even workshops. So when you visit the YouTube channel, if you just remember to hit the subscribe button and hit the bell notification, and that way anything new that we bring out that might be relevant to you, you'll have a notification to go straight to it.
Okay, so I've now loosened the things that I've needed to loosen. I've loosened the two screws on the legs, and I have made sure this central nut is tight and the one on the left is loose. Now, my cuts, I'll show you. There is a distinct line between my cuts. I need to move the squaring arm so that it pivots a little bit and the blade will fall between those two cuts. In order to do that, I'm going to micro maneuver with the adjustment block. Now, this is quite important. If your second cut was to the right of your first cut, you have to turn this block in a clockwise position. If your second cut was to the left of the first cut, you need to turn the screw into an anti-clockwise position. So I'm going to turn mine into an anti-clockwise position. Mine was quite out, so I'm going to turn it about 3 times. I'm going to have a look. Still out. So I need to move it a little bit more. Now visually, I can see that the sightline strip, this is where the blade is going to be passing, I can see that that is going to be sitting about halfway between those two cuts. And that helps me find out where the blade is going to be passing. So I think that's okay. I'm going to not tighten up anything. I'm going to perform the test again, just to make sure that it is actually performing as it should be doing before I start tightening stuff up. So I'm going to choose a different part of the board, a cleaner part of the board. I've slid it over to the right. I'm going to clamp it down, making sure that it's still housed securely. Engage the blade, do a cut at the top, a cut at the bottom, slide the board out, turn it on its face, go back in, sliding it to the cuts, and I need to insert the blade again in the bottom cut. So I'm just going to make sure that it's flat. House the blade in the bottom so it doesn't move. Clamp it down, disengage the blade and make a cut again in the top. Now I'm quite happy with that. My machine is fine. The second cut went into the first cut, so it's square for me. I know that my boards are going to be cutting fine. If you need to keep micro adjusting it, you can absolutely keep micro adjusting it until the blade settles between those two cuts. Now, because I know that my machine is now calibrated, I'm going to tighten up the nuts and the screws that I previously loosened. So I'm going to go ahead and do that and pass you back over to Curtis.
Brilliant. So just to let you guys know that we do have these sessions running in the future. We have a few going on in March. So on the 2nd of March at the same time as today, so that's 3 PM GMT and 10 AM Eastern, we'll be showing you how to calibrate and use the SteelTrak V-Groover. And on the 16th of March in the same time slot, Debbie will be demonstrating how to make a sign tray with the SteelTrak V-Groover. We will post any updates of these sessions on our social media channels along with reminders, so again make sure you are following us to keep up to date with everything.
Thank you, Curtis. So thank you very much for watching today's session. As Curtis has mentioned, do we have any questions, Curtis, by the way?
We don't today at the moment. We do have some good viewers today.
Okay, so as Curtis mentioned, you can find us on social media. We're on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram and Twitter. We also have a Keencut YouTube channel, so these videos will be uploaded to our Keencut YouTube channel for future viewing, and you can find a lot of digital content up there. In fact, for the new C2 head, you can find already videos up there if you want a little bit more information about that. You can also visit our website. It has a lot of information up there. It's www.keencut.com. And I suppose all that remains is for me to thank you for your time and your company. I hope you found it informative. I hope you've enjoyed watching it as much as I've enjoyed doing it. And wherever you are in the world, I wish you a very happy day. Many thanks. Bye bye.